derivative. It's what you get when you take a video game powerhouse that just created one of their cornerstone pillars, give the director behind countless company classics, and try to create that same magic with a new IP. Capcom has this quirk where they make something that does gangbusters and then they just try to recreate that over and over and over and over and over again. They did this with a million Street Fighter 2s that were released and frankly the entire 90s fighting game era. They did it again with Resident Evil, Dino Crisis, Onimusha, and now Capcom was trying to do the same with this game. But listen, it just has a really cool ass name. Chaos! I'm just now learning that this game is based on a light novel of the same name, making this a manga adaptation created by Capcom and not a new IP. I'm not going to read this series, but I feel as though it probably expands and gives more context and builds up to major plot points that the game just couldn't afford to do. Written by Tao U. Only other things I know of him are Psychopaths, Cordyceps Saga, one of the very few Xbox 360 RPGs, and Marduk Scramble, a pretty obscure sci-fi thriller trilogy about a sex worker turned android tasked with espionage missions. I actually think it's kind of cool. Wait, she's 15? Orphan, Gungrave, MS Saga. These are only a handful of titles that were among the few to receive video game adaptations with English localizations, with little knowledge that they were established franchises in Japan. Running in Dragon Magazine, home of Slayers, the OG that every anime club teacher threw on you. Orphan, which I just mentioned, and more recently Data Live. The series would run weekly until 2004 and to this day has not received any other adaptation other than this game. The game only covers the first out of 7 novels in this series, so suffice to say there's a lot more to this game that meets the eye. I have this pet peeve of games not really explaining or setting up their world properly before throwing big ass words and exposition at you at the start. You play as our red-haired themed protagonist on a journey to find the white-haired, blue-themed, katana-wielding best friend, after a situation involving a blonde damsel between the two leads one to the darkness. If you think this sounds like Devil May Cry, you'd be right, because this story is pretty bare bones. After the initial opening in the first 2 levels, you kind of just get a cutscene at the end of a level to kind of explain what dilapidated town you were in and where you're going to go fight the next demon. There's this girl that starts following you pretty quickly in the progression of the game, and on a quest to find the same guy as you to seek revenge for the murder of her family. The main villain has one of those would be cool in a 12 episode seasonal animal motives of like, the people in power are lying to you, we're the real ones controlling everything, so I'm gonna destroy the world, like one of those ones. Which I mean fits because the game is only 12 stages, but there aren't many twists or turns and there's very little exposition. If you don't like spoilers, I suggest you skip the next chapter at this point while I kind of gush about the ending and why I hate specific tropes in the games in general, but I feel like my mouth vomited enough for people to click. Like you saw the timestamp. Okay, we're good. Okay, cool. The whole point of the story is that Dollar Store Virgil here joined the dark side after you killed his lover, where it turns out he was possessed by essentially Satan and she shielded her, not Dante, against the dying in the process. This is only revealed after you finally defeat your nemesis, to where he just jumps bodies and goes right into the dead body of his lover for the most frustrating boss fight I've had in a very long time. I hate stories where this lead up to the big bad villain and then the whole story just kills them off at the last second for a completely newly introduced bigger bad that's been controlling everything under the schemes. It kind of comes off as lazy and uninspired. And I don't know if it's because the series was still ongoing at the time of development, so there wasn't much Capcom could pull from the source materials, or if they just didn't know how to adapt all the smaller details into an arcade action game. It's hard to directly adapt novels into interactive formats, especially in the early 2000s before the story truly reached the heights that we see today. This is especially true in ongoing stories that have the means to flesh out the world and characters that inhabit it. The world is pretty uninspired just because it's so much like Devil May Cry. I'd throw some copyright laws at this game if it wasn't by the same fucking people. The game saves itself by not letting you do a stinger, which I mean, they call the double jump air raid, so I mean, yeah, there's that. All of the legions have distinct designs, but the designs are so similar to the monsters you're fighting that if they were beating the shit out of each other and everything inside, I couldn't tell you the difference. I will say at least that Sieg's design is striking in comparison to the rest of the game. You can tell the game was built around his character design and not vice versa, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because I hope that's what every team does when they're making a character action game. But with this game, everything else seems boring. I don't know if it's because it's a 6th generation or the lack of HD graphics or the fact that this game is almost 20 years old, but I mean, hey, games that were almost 20 years old when this game released look like this, and games now look like this 20 years later. The world was supposed to be vibrant and expansive from what characters tell you, but it all feels lifeless, and not even swapping color palettes can make it feel as colorful as you wants you to believe. The constraints on Chaos Legion prevents moments like Aricia going to look for survivors having little impact because there's no visible dead bodies or even blood to drive home the fact. If it isn't part of the main narrative, then there's very little attempt to flesh it out. On the reverse side, this works in DMC's favor because you go to a mysterious castle, secluded from the modern world. It's creepy, dark, ominous, and as a demon hunter yourself, you have that cockiness that is immediately conveyed that breaks that fear and allows you to tackle the challenges ahead. Even when we break away into more modern areas, people justifiably freak the fuck out about what you're doing. You see them in cutscenes and gameplay running away from what's obviously demons and a crazy man with a big ass sword. Without proper world building in certain games like this, you feel like you're just acting without motivation or incentive. Was it the limitations of technology or time restraints or the unfinished source material? The world may never know unless it goes the orphan route and get an actual anime 20 years later. Hopefully anybody starting this likes this game, has a little extra edge because there's nothing low-key about the giant porcelain castles, the gothic environments, and the redhead wielding giant sword protagonist. My first impressions on how the game feels is actually really positive. It has a nice crunch to it. It feels great smacking around all the weird little blobby things, even if they aren't any additional combos. It goes all through the staples of a character action game. You get experience in killing baddies, recovery items that can only be accessed in a slow as fuck pause screen. It's all there. Where things get really interesting is when you enter the first room. Maybe you notice the exorbitant amount of enemies on screen compared to other character action games. That's because Chaos Legion's exclusive gimmick, that's right, you're a JoJo character with a sword. These legions, as they're called, each have their own movesets and abilities and level up requirements, leading to some engaging encounters throughout the game. Since the game is mostly running from one battle arena to the next battle arena, but not as there's nothing else to do. There's not really any branching paths or anything. It allows for combat, though, to be the focal point of the game, and with time, these combat options do increase. Each legion gives you a myriad of combo moves, juggles, and even utility options like a counter or a double jump. There's a sword legion which boosts your sword skills and summons a whopping 8 whole legions to help you in battle. The bow legion, which allows for long range combat and super effective against metallic creatures. The bomb legion, which is useless. The claw legion, which electrifies enemies and allows for more dodging and traversal abilities to be unlocked. The shield legion, which can take and store damage and release it to enemies with this big fuck you beam. And the Power Legion, which is just stands. It's literally 4-star platinum suplexing and beating the fuck out of all enemies on screen. You also get this Super Legion, which is like a mixture of all of the legions, but in one before you get an excellent showcasing in the intro level before it's broken, of course, for plot reasons. I do enjoy the fact that I get to turn my mind off a little while playing this game. There's only 2 different objectives to all the rooms, just kill everything or kill the biggest guy or the enemy spawner in the room. I didn't find the game that difficult. Being able to swap between 2 different legions during missions helped keep things fresh while also mastering each unique style of legion. It wasn't until stage 3 where I started to feel a foreboding groan reach out to me from the bowels of the nano breakers engulfed hell. Okay, cause see, the game isn't hard, nor is it frustrating or annoying, it's just boring. Once you complete the 4th stage, you pretty much have seen everything the game's had to offer you other than the remaining 3 legions you haven't unlocked. You still will be running from combat room to combat room, beating on monsters until they die. Sure, there's some complexities like the flesh and mechanical effectiveness or the combo together specific legions to best defeat your foes, but I mean, that's it. But credit where it's credit due, the game is still fun as hell. There's even a level where you play as Aricia where she has a completely different moveset with these dual pistols, which I honestly wish the entire game was like. Honestly, I don't know what else to tell you about Chaos Legion. It's one of those self-explanatory games. I don't think you're going to be seeing any Chaos Legion combo videos or anything like that. It's a simple game that tries its best to switch it up sometimes when encountered, but doesn't quite hit that mark. Gotta give the poor bastard some pats though. It was released in between Pokemon Ruby and Wind Waker. I wouldn't be touching my PlayStation 2, let alone Chaos Legion around that time. If you're a fan of character action games, you might like this experience. If you're seriously watching a review made in 2022 about a random PlayStation 2 game, Andy, chances are you either want to pick it up or you want to see what people are saying about a game you love. Pick it up. It won't be a blemish on your collection like some other games. At the time of recording, this game was around like only $20 at most, complete in box on eBay, so it's not gonna break the bank or anything, but I do wish we were able to see more of this series in general. Chaos Legion 2, I wonder how that would have been. Light novels are all the new rage. Maybe we're 2 seasons off from them announcing an anime or turn-based RPG retelling or something. You know how they like to do these things in Japan. For all we know, it's a pachinko machine right now. I would like to see this franchise tackled again with modern advances in gaming. What do you guys think of Chaos Legion, and what would you like to see if this game was retold with the rest of the story done? Or how would you like it? Would you like it done in a new like genre or anything of the sorts like that? Let us know in the comments section below. I am Sondi. I select a couple games from here and there that I like to highlight that I think are unique and worth your while. And if you enjoy this type of content, I suggest you subscribe. We also have a podcast called Back of the Rack where we talk about games long neglected and not respected in a 6-hour time span. I don't fucking know. Okay, I just be talking my ass off on these sections. So like, yeah, bro, like the name of the fucking channel is Back of the Rack, bro. Just look at the rest of the shit on there, bro. We got podcasts, bro. Come on. Anyway, yes, man. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, swell day. And like always, peace.